following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to Sudden Impact Radio on Blog Talk Radio, the man they call Meathead, Matthew Thomas. We are watching Austin Aries pretty much just tear right into Jeff Hardy, tear into the fans, and tear into everybody. He walks out with a quote-unquote script to the ring and says, you know, since I won this World Heavyweight Championship, I've been told exactly what to say and exactly what to do and embrace these fans. Well, that's over. Matthew, this is the time where Austin Aries finally makes us decide who we're going to cheer for and who we're going to cheer against at the pay-per-view, because I believe this is a heel turn. Apparently technical difficulties. Let's try that one more time, Matthew. The operator was asleep at the wheel. Matthew, I believe this is what we call a heel turn.
Absolutely. A little Austin Aries kind of pipe bomb, if you will, to close things off here. Something that I think was much needed to give us a little bit of fire in this Hardy-Aries match.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. Right before we went on the air, what did I do? I kind of went over to you and said, kind of a flat end to the show, don't you think? And all of a sudden, the moment I got off with you, poof, here comes Austin Aries. He picked business right up.
Absolutely. It was just kind of lacking that urgency, especially as it pertained to this TNA title match, and it looks like we're getting a little bit of urgency, a little bit of intrigue here.
Yeah, and not only that, TNA is in an overrun, so that adds to the heat, that adds to the excitement. Again, you know, you mentioned it out on Twitter earlier tonight that we had a very hot Impact crowd tonight. You know, it would mean more to me if the Impact crowd was hot because it was before Bound for Glory and everybody's all excited. You can never tell. It's a Universal Studios crowd. Who knows the difference? Yeah. They didn't go there because it's the show before Bound for Glory. They went there because they were done riding the amusement rides.
Absolutely. It's just kind of hit or miss from week to week, and it's not a show that's on the road where you've got the fan base that
there
knows
we go.
The go home show. Wow. And yeah, it looks like we got a full-fledged heel turn here.
That's okay. I think it's enough of a full-fledged heel turn to get us by to the pay-per-view. We'll see what happens after this Sunday, but talk about a man that's hot and he's saying it. Austin Aries with a little steam and a little fire. Folks, again, welcome to Sudden Impact Radio. Impact ran a little long tonight, so we're doing a little play-by-play, a little commentary, a little analysis along with the show. If you want to interact with the show, the number to call in, area code 347-996-5278. Also, toll-free at 877-317-9772. It's your opportunity to interact with us here at Sudden Impact Radio. And if you're on Twitter, using the hashtag Sudden Impact Radio, you got a chance to have your tweet read on the air. Also, you're the real Matthew Thomas, right? And I'm at WCW Meathead. Make sure you're also following us.
The real M. Thomas on Twitter.
M. Thomas. Oh, because there's a Matthew Thomas out there that was also real as well, correct?
That's right, and that's there's still some legislation. There's still some lawsuit pending there, so I can't talk too much about it. It's still tied up in litigation, but that's kind of the abbreviated version right there.
Well, all that stuff will come out in the debate when you're running for my vice president when I run for president in 4 years anyway. So I mean, you might as well just put it out there now.
Yeah, for right now, I'm kind of tight-lipped about it though. So
yeah, the fact checkers will have that all out
until everything's settled in court.
So again, interact with us on the program, the real M. Thomas, correct?
You got
it. At WCW Meathead and at PWR Show. Make sure you're using the hashtag Sudden Impact Radio, and you got a chance to have your tweet read on the air as well. Let's talk about it. This is the show, the go-home show for their #1 pay-per-view of the year. This is the final Impact before we go to Bound for Glory. And again, Bound for Glory, regardless of the way the matches are arranged, the way the talent performs, this is the one that they care about. This is out on the road. It's their first time being in Phoenix. This is their #1 pay-per-view of the year. They will pull out all the stops. Granted, it's a #2 company stops, if you know what I mean. I mean, they don't have the production value of, say, a company from New York, but they will put on a show that is definitely worth buying, definitely worth checking out. And let's run down what Impact was tonight. First off, we start with a previously on Impact. I feel like not only does it feel like a soap opera thing. Do you remember when 24 was on the air?
Yeah, huh?
Previously
Absolutely.
on 24. And they didn't do just, the last week. They didn't recap you on everything from the last week. They sometimes jumped back and forth. It was from story thread to story thread to story thread to story thread, sometimes, 2-3 months back. But they run back on how King Mo got involved in the pay-per-view as he's the special enforcer for the Storm Roode match. Also, Sting teaming up with the Bully Ray, taking on the Aces and Eights. And you didn't expect, obviously, to have the Aces and Eights members announced tonight. They're just going to show up, and they'll choose two right at the pay-per-view. Also, they announced that there's going to be two matches tonight, James Storm and Austin Aries, and, a match between James Storm and Austin Aries. And Bobby Roode taking on Jeff Hardy. One of the matches coming up right now, here comes James Storm and Austin Aries. That's what opened the show. And, it's funny, Matthew, I don't know what your viewing habits are for Impact. Do you watch solo? Are you sitting amongst a group of friends? How do you watch Impact every week?
I am solo, eyes tuned to the television, tunnel vision, laser, Jedi-like focus.
You are solo. 9 times out of 10, I am as well. I had a viewing compadre with me tonight.
All right.
She's about 5'6", 36, 24, 36, and she's lucky enough to be called Mrs. Head.
All right.
My wife sat and watched the Impact with me for the first hour and a half until I kicked her out at 8:30 because I got to focus, baby. I got to focus. No.
So is she ready to press that buy button come Sunday?
She was ready to do the show if I said I didn't want to do it. She goes, I know what's going on. Bully Ray and Sting against Aces and Eights. I said, oh, yeah, what's the match stipulation? She goes, I don't know. They're going to win the tag team belts. I said, no, you're wrong. You got to get these things right. But anyways, I had a special participant with me watching, and the one thing that I pulled away from her, remember, this is somebody that's not a wrestling fan. My wife is not a wrestling fan. This is somebody that is just a casual viewer that happened to be watching it. She came away colored impressed with James Storm and Austin Aries. She says, these guys are athletic. And, comparing it to WWE, which she's also watched and seen, she goes, there's not a lot of horsing around in here. These guys, and she goes, oh, that was rough. I said, they call that stiff, sweetheart, stiff. That was a rough, stiff match that they had. How did you feel James Storm, Austin Aries came off?
It was a good match, especially a very good match for a go-home show. A lot of times if you kind of follow the WWE model of things, you would expect to see Aries and Hardy involved in a tag match of some sort with maybe paired with Roode and Storm in some capacity. They're big fans of doing the tag matches with the different participants in the matches on the go-home show. But you actually had two singles matches that were anything but phoned in tonight. I mean, those two guys went out there and they put in an effort, and it was, like you said, it was a stiff, very athletic match. And one thing I noticed, Aries especially, man, he just looked like he had some fire in him tonight. He looked like he had a fire in his eyes that, it was a lot more than just going through the paces. They were out there performing on this go-home show prior to a pay-per-view. And I will say this, that's the pros right there. The cons, there's another side of me that almost feels you've got your champion out there in the go-home show before a major pay-per-view. Does it take away a little bit by having him actually wrestle a match? Is he better served for coming out there and doing something on the mic, especially after, the setup with Hardy and Aries is the fact that Hardy's went through this Bound for Glory tournament to get the privilege of wrestling the champion. And while this match, of course, was not for the title, does it take away a little bit of the prestige of having your champion actually wrestle on the go-home show? I'm kind of torn. I can see it from both sides of the fence there.
Great point made there, Matthew. If you're going to do that, and again, we saw Storm and Aries really put on a solid athletic performance, I think that you're right. The only one that probably shouldn't have to wrestle is the World Heavyweight Champion. Jeff Hardy earned the privilege, like you said, to get into the pay-per-view and wrestle the champion. Well, the champion also earned the privilege by being a champion. All the advantages should go to the champion. Tie goes to the runner. You have to pin the champion. You have to defeat the champion. If he's counted out, the champion still keeps the belt. I think in this case, champion shouldn't have to work. Regardless if it's a face or a heel, I think right before the pay-per-view, champion should have the night off. Just put him on the microphone.
Absolutely. But the positive side, like you saw with your viewing companion tonight, they go out there, put on a solid match. Maybe you get some people who were on the fence or not as familiar with Aries, that kind of pushes them over the edge right there, seeing what the guy can do in the ring. So you can kind of take it from both perspectives there.
I would take it from that perspective if they had cross-promoted this particular show. Let's say, for example, that your channel flipper, for the first time ever, isn't watching the debate, which dominated all the major networks, isn't watching the debate and seeing that. But to be honest, those guys wrestled at the top of the hour. Now, the debate, again, I always say in central terms. Everybody else thinks about it Eastern Standard Time. The debate was at 7 o'clock Central. Or excuse me, 7:30. This match started at 7 and was done before 7:30. So I don't know if this was viewed by as many people that it should have been, and I don't know that if people that were watching it didn't already have their opinion of Austin Aries and James Storm. So the people that were watching it were well aware of who they were watching. So I don't know if it would have swung anybody either way, but still a great match to open up the show. I thought it was pay-per-view quality, kind of a waste, to be honest. To be honest with you, it's something that could have been shown on the pay-per-view, but nevertheless, we had a great match to watch.
Absolutely, they went out there and put on a show, and like I said, it was anything but a dialed-in show before the pay-per-view. I mean, they went out there and they performed. It was a stiff, solid match, and I was very, very impressed. A good way to open up Impact tonight.
Yeah, and again, Bobby Roode obviously interfering in the match, giving Austin Aries the victory. Backstage, Kurt Angle is with Wes Briscoe. The more I look at Wes Briscoe, he looks like one of the aces and eights, to be honest with you.
I could see that.
There's one guy that's been wearing the flannel that's got some blonde locks that stick out. I mean, obviously we could be wrong, but he feels like he might be in aces and eights. And ironically enough, he asked Kurt Angle backstage, "Hey, can I tag along with you to Bound for Glory, Mr. Angle?"
Yeah, and what a cheesy way he went about delivering it to. I mean, it was almost Wally asking the Beav a question.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. And now that you mention it, maybe that's a little bit of something to read into there, just in that delivery about tagging along. I don't know. It seemed over the top corny to me.
And over the top corny intentionally, like I said, because how do you think they've been getting in the building?
Very, very good point.
There you go. So Sting, given his memories of what's been going on with Bound for Glory, I don't mind Sting. We've had some bones to pick with these memories of Bound for Glory, and talking about guys that have had all these great memories of Bound for Glory, like a guy that had one, that had been there twice. Oh man, I remember my Bound for Glory from 2 years ago. It was the best. Sting's been around, and Sting's wrestled in the company on and off. He's had some memorable matches. As a matter of fact, that the move that Joe pulled on him in the Chicago Bound for Glory, where he jumped over the railing and down the stairs at Sting. I thought a great match. Big argument backstage with Kurt Angle and AJ Styles. Kurt Angle not escorting AJ out to the ring for his singles match, and the Hulkster and Stinger interacting with Bully Ray. I feel that there's something going on there as well, even though technically we had a Bully Ray face swing as well tonight. I feel that Bully Ray could be the one behind aces and eights, maybe even Dixie Carter too for Don in New York, but I definitely feel Bully Ray being a part of that. Anyways, Stinger and the Hulkster making their way out to the ring. Boy, they were antagonistic with each other on the mic, and can TNA please get each man a mic? Why are they fighting with one mic between the two of them?
You gotta conserve your money where you can,
I understand that the VPs are, arguing about it right now on the debate and talking about how we can save money and bring a country back. But for the love of all that's holy, man, just get another mic. You got another one back there. Just give it to one of them. I mean, there's no reason that Hulkster and Sting should be arguing for a mic. Aren't they both icons? Can't they get a microphone? They gave Zema Ion a microphone by himself.
Well, by them having one mic to fight over just shows that they can share. You know, it does a good job of promoting sharing. So I think we can all learn something from that.
It shows teamwork. There you go. The Hulkster and the Stinger with their teamwork back and forth. Ha! Hilarious.
It's the little things. It's the little things.
Yeah. So they make their way out to the ring, and obviously talking about the aces and eights situation. Bully Ray stepped up to the plate last week, and it's funny that Christopher Daniels and Kaz would come down and say, you picked the most untrusting person in the locker room. Let your superheroes take care of it. First, get us out of this tag match, and then we'll fight aces and eights for you, no problem. Well, I thought it was a fantastic delivery between Daniels and Kazarian, who is getting better. Didn't those two have their own mic, or did they share?
I can't remember. I think they may have shared as well.
I don't know. Again, these are just the little things that I should be paying attention to, but there's so many, it would be a waste of time. I'd never watch the program, if I'm counting microphones between the talents over and over. A match is made, though. It's going to be Bully Ray and Sting versus the World Tag Team Champions of the World, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. And we'll get to that match in a little bit, but I thought that the build of it, and again, you could feel that you're supposed to trust Bully Ray. You can feel that they're trying to take you, and this is why we love wrestling. They're trying to take you. They're mentally trying to drag your mind along. Bully Ray, he's getting better. He's starting to do the right things. He's starting to do things that are good for us, good for America. Bully Ray is the guy that we're behind. That's what you do. It's kind of a dog and pony show, really.
Yeah, it really felt like they were setting something up tonight with him, and we'll cover it in a little while, but just in there and also in the actual match itself, whenever you see anybody going out of their way to be over-facey like he was tonight, it really makes you wonder if they're setting you up for a swerve, or maybe that's what they want you to think. Maybe they're a step ahead of you. Maybe they're swerving you to swerve you,
That's okay, because we watch wrestling to be swerved. That's what we want. Yeah. The next match was Hernandez with his tag team partner at ringside versus the phenomenal AJ Styles. Again, wife pipes in at this point and says, "Those are some really cute gloves. Don't the NFL players have those?" I said, "Yes, they do." Those, again, she's noticing the little things. So AJ Styles always with his fantastic ring gear. And I did mention to her, by the way, watch Bound for Glory this week. I guarantee you he's probably got his breast cancer awareness tights on again, which is something I've always loved about AJ Styles. Always, kind of one step ahead. If I were to, and this is no insult to Shawn Michaels, but I would call him the Shawn Michaels of TNA. He's that guy that always performs. Always, just seems to have that extra step. Does that extra thing. AJ Styles just does the work. He does the job, and he lives it.
I think that's very fair. He's one guy you can always count on to deliver. And anytime you're going to get an AJ Styles match, I mean, I can't ever remember watching a bad AJ Styles match.
I don't know if there is one. I can't think of one either. Of course, the Twitterverse and the Chatosphere will tell us about the time, back in 2000 whatever when he did this or whatever, it happens, and then they'll say Botchamania, and they'll go from there. But let's talk about aces and eights. They put up a video that showed Joseph Park is fine. Apparently, they had him been feeding poor Joseph Park because he tore into looked like beans and rice. Didn't it look like it? Like he grabbed the tortilla or something?
Rice of some sort. He was dipping the tortilla or whatever the bread-based substance was into the rice.
Bread-based substance, folks. Bread-based substance.
Could have been bread. Could have been a tortilla. Could have been a muffin. Could have been toast. It was a bread-based substance of some sort there. So Joseph Park on his way to some nourishment tonight.
Nourishment, yeah, and he's a big boy, so he needs lots of nourishment. He could have just ate an hour ago.
And sans the wet T-shirt, no wet T-shirt tonight, which
thank God, because when I saw that, I didn't know what it reminded me of until I saw Kingpin this weekend. It reminded me of Randy Quaid coming out of the freezer. That's what I thought of.
And that's what you want in your wrestling right there.
is Randy Quaid in a T-shirt with his nipples sticking out. Zema Ion making his way to the ring as the announce team talking about his apparently mean streak. Ion grabs the microphone and said he's breaking necks and arms for all the X Division champ and says, I'm the X Division champ, but I don't have a match at the biggest pay-per-view of the year. So I guess it is true. And then this is where he delivers his line. Not only am I effing dangerous, what is his gimmick again? Not only am I effing dangerous, I'm effing something, but the way he said effing was the trigger because here comes RVD. And he said he talked to Hogan in the back, and he goes, you can have whoever you want. So looks like we've got an X Division title match this Sunday, RVD against Zema Ion. What are you expecting out of this match?
I'm honestly perfectly fine with this. RVD's one of those guys that I feel like they struggle and have a difficult time finding a very constructive use for him at times. And RVD in this spot versus Zema Ion, you got to think it's going to go the way of Zema Ion pulling out the victory in some capacity. And for Zema Ion at this point in his career, a win over RVD in an X Division title match, I think is kind of a big deal for the guy. So
not only that, at the Bound for Glory pay-per-view.
Yeah, absolutely. Their signature pay-per-view event. So the logical thing seems to be to have Zema Ion go over, and by hook or by crook, he can walk away from it saying that he has beaten RVD. And I think at this point in his career, that's, like you said, Meathead, at the signature pay-per-view, that's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yes, it is. So let's take a quick break. We're a little off of the format tonight, but that's okay. We're still going to take your phone calls as well. The number to call in if you want to talk in the program tonight, 347-996-5278, or toll free at 877-317-9772. You're listening to Sudden Impact Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio.
On sale right now at PWRshow.com. Get all the latest Pro Wrestling Report merchandise, including the Fella t-shirt, Yabba Dabba Bitch, and the ever-popular Milwaukee 316 on the front and on the back. All of the pay-per-view events that happen in Milwaukee. Get all this merchandise, including the tremendous t-shirt, and much, much more, available right now at PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com. All the latest PWR gear on sale right now.
Welcome back to Sudden
You're
Impact
listening to
Radio on Blog Talk
PWR
Radio,
Sudden
the fan they
Impact
call
Radio,
Meathead.
breaking
Real
down
Matthew
all
Thomas.
that happened on tonight's
unlike the others
Impact Wrestling
we've talked about,
broadcast.
we hinted that there's litigation in the mix, but Matthew Thomas, the man they call Meathead, talking about Impact. It's a go-home show, Matthew, so after tonight, we've only got a couple days until their signature pay-per-view, Bound for Glory, TNA, their WrestleMania. Again, even though you're comparing apples to, Cavaliers, it's still their number one show of the year. It's kind of like WCW Starrcade. It's their show. It's the one they build towards. Their angles, their gimmicks, everything works towards this show.
Yeah, it's their big one, no doubt. And I guess the question walking away from tonight is, did they do the job in making you want to buy the pay-per-view?
Yeah, pretty much. So let's talk about Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, the World Tag Team Champions of the world, of the Tag Team Champions of the world, of the world, of the world, taking on Bully Ray and Sting. And by the way, the Hulkster said the Stingman one more time. Again, does he think he's Jamaican? Is all the stress over the porn tape that he made really getting at him when he was, getting at Bubba's wife? I mean, that's what's going on? Is that why Bubba's out of TNA?
It may very well be. We've heard Mon now for 2 weeks in a row, so it's a trend now. I mean, I think it's definitely catching on.
Yeah, and speaking of catching on. Let's catch on to this Christopher Daniels Kazarian versus Bully Ray and Sting match. You alluded to it earlier, the over-faciness, if that's a term, of Bully Ray in this match, especially with Sting asking Bully Ray to go get the tables. That was the face of all face moves for Bully. Bully, get the tables. How did you feel this match went off?
It seemed to go okay as a match. I'm just watching Bully Ray the whole time, and I'm watching him on the apron playing cheerleader Bully Ray, and I found it a little bit distracting from the actual match itself because I'm just going through my head the whole time trying to figure out how Aces and Eights turns out at the pay-per-view. Is he involved? Is he the head of Aces and Eights? Do they do something crazy? Are they trying to make you think that he is? And do they do something crazy and have Sting involved in some capacity, which seems outlandish at this point, but like we talked about earlier tonight, is it the swerve of the swerve there? And I got to say, if that's what I'm thinking the whole time, I got to say they did a pretty effective job because it's building interest and intrigue to Bound for Glory on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you 100% on that. But yeah, the cheering for Sting. You want to see Sting? You want Sting? Sting, Sting, Sting. Yeah, it was a little much. But again, they're it's a sleight of hand trick. That's what wrestling is. We want to be swerved. So are they setting us up for the big gimmick, the big swerve, or are they really leading us into believing that this is what they're going to do with Bully now to get you behind him for a possible world title push? A video package shown of the Al Snow and Joey Ryan saga, I guess we'll call it, was aired. Ryan said he was tricked by Snow with a match stipulation, but he will have the Joey Ryan supporters out with him because they're on the West Coast. The Joey Ryan is from the West Coast, and they are having the pay-per-view in Arizona. So we also see Samoa Joe talking about, I like the way they mixed up and they got everybody that's really in the show. If they weren't wrestling on the show, they showed them, talked to them, introduced them again. You had Samoa Joe, you had Magnus, talking to each other, Joey Ryan, Al Snow. You had those all kind of represented there. So everybody that was on the pay-per-view this Sunday was actually on Impact tonight, which I think was fantastic work.
Yeah, which is critical and should be standard issue for a go-home show, although oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes the only remembrance that you have that the match is actually taking place is in the run-up and the recap when they're actually announcing the matches on the card. So they did a very good job, whether in-ring or whether it was some type of vignette promo, of getting these people involved in the show tonight.
Yep, absolutely. Let us now go into the knockouts for the night. Gail Kim and Miss Tessmacher. You and I, we talked about this last week, how there was constant interaction with, Tara's involvement about her Hollywood boyfriend, and there always seemed to be ODB around. ODB not around tonight, but Tara involving herself in Miss Tessmacher's non-title match with Gail Kim. Tessmacher comes out with the victory, and yeah, she didn't get involved tonight. So here we talked about week after week after week that ODB was involved in it, but didn't happen tonight. I think I'm going to go with you on that it may be EY. That's her Hollywood boyfriend, and he's going to be at the show. Of course he's at the show. He's a TNA talent. Why wouldn't he be there?
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a few weeks, and we didn't see ODB at all tonight. So just enough time to make you kind of forget about her and forget about that whole situation. So when it does ultimately come to be like I think it will be on Sunday, it still has that surprise factor built in for you.
Finally, let's talk about main event. It's Bobby Roode and it's Jeff Hardy. A very solid match. Very solid match. Again, pay-per-view quality stuff, just like we saw from Austin Aries and James Storm earlier in the night. There was the promo. And again, here we're getting ready for Set on Impact Radio, so we didn't hear every word, but we got just the gist of it. Austin Aries is done with the face promos. He threw his face promo, threw it out the window. He said, I'm done listening to what everyone has to tell me on how I should interact with fans, done with trying to be a nice guy. I'm going to take what Jeff Hardy has, because he said week after week after week, I'm jealous of you. I want the kids wearing the silly pantyhose on their arms. I want that money. I want to be a star. I want all of that. And there is some heat and intensity coming out of Austin Aries tonight.
Yeah, we saw the fire with Aries tonight, and I'm so glad they went ahead and did that. That was one match on this card that I just did not feel like it had the build that it should, and we got it in the closing moments tonight, which I think is a good way to go off the air. We talked about last week right here on Impact that it seemed like that would be the wise thing to do, is go off the air with something hot as it pertains to the title match, which had been a little bit underbilled in this build-up, and I'm glad they did it. My only question, Meathead, is this something that should have been done a week or two ago to develop a little more interest in Hardy Aries? Did they do it? Did they do it a little bit too late?
Maybe. But you weren't buying or not buying the pay-per-view just because of Jeff Hardy and Austin Aries. If you were buying or not buying the pay-per-view, it was because of the whole package, because of all the other matches you wanted to see, or the fact that you weren't going to buy it because there weren't enough matches that were on the card. It wasn't this one match that was, the deciding factor between yes or no. So I think they're fine with what they did. And again, they showed everything that they needed to show. In tonight's Impact. They did a fantastic job with a go-home show. Speaking of going home, I'd like to go home and take some phone calls. Are you ready for some phone calls?
Let's do it.
All right, the numbers, 347-996-5278, or toll-free at 877-317-9772. If you want to interact with the program, you can also put your tweets out there using the hashtag #SunandImpactRadio, and you may get your tweet read on the air. We were going to the phones to the 316 area code. What is your name, and where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm Zeron Connor, and calling from Kansas City, Missouri.
KC,
and,
hey, I got a question for you, Zeron.
Yes.
Now, I know Kansas City and Kansas City are like right next to each other, Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. Who's better? Who's got the inferiority complex? Is it Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri?
It'd probably have to be the Kansas side because, as you know, Missouri, they have the Chiefs, the Royals, and we have the, the NASCAR arena. We have the MLS team, which really means nothing, but in America.
So what you're saying is, so when you say Kansas City, you don't need to say Missouri because everybody knows where you're from. But when they're from Kansas City, Kansas, they got to mention they're from Kansas because they're not from Missouri.
Yeah, when we notice us Kansas, we notice we have to put in the Missouri part when we travel around the country.
Fair enough. Let's talk wrestling. What do you got?
I really appreciated that they they were pretty much just throughout the whole night, they were giving us, like you said, pay-per-view quality matches. And they really appreciate us fans that they don't try to insult our intelligence and act like, I'm speaking from a WWE standpoint because they act like we have the attention span and the memory span of a goldfish. And
a very intelligent goldfish, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you thought Impact overall was a good show for a go-home show, and we talked about that. Matthew and I did earlier about how they seem to play it safe on the go-home show and, throw a bunch of their main event talents into tag team matches so they're not getting hurt and so forth. So you're saying you enjoyed the pay-per-view quality double singles matches.
Yeah, and going back on what you said earlier in the show, how you didn't understand that Hogan and Sting they didn't have separate microphones. I kind of sensed that they wanted to introduce, a struggle between the two, Hogan and Sting, because they just Hogan didn't trust Bully Ray's, intentions. He thought he had an ulterior motive. He didn't know if he could go into the match and have him, alongside Sting as an actual tag team partner. And Sting, he wanted his endorsement, and that's why they were snatching the microphone from each other the entire time. And I just really thought it was symbolic of a struggle why they were fighting between microphones.
That's fair enough. Anything else you want to talk about tonight before we let you go?
That's about it. I mean, I just wanted to give it a pass.
Oh, fair enough. All right. So pass from Kansas City, first-time caller, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling in. Make sure you're calling in again. Matthew, what did you think about Duran's point on the struggle between Sting and Hogan?
Yeah, that's a very good point there. It was something that I really didn't read that much into, but if you go back and watch it, it can be those little things like that, whereas I viewed it as a way of the two sharing and, showing that you can actually work together. It might be a little something more involved, a little more cinematic element like that they were going for. So very valid and good point there.
All right. Next, we're going on to the 973. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello, 973. Go ahead. I feel like Larry King when I'm doing it. Poughkeepsie, you're on with Larry King. We're going to go to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. All right, we're going to let the 973 go. It's time for the main event, Matthew. I kept him on hold a little bit longer because he's a man deserving of the main event on our call segment. Ladies and gentlemen, from Memphis, Tennessee, is Tennessee Titans playing the Steelers tonight. This is Curryhead. Curryhead.
What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Curryhead, what's happening?
How do you enjoy these intros? I mean, it's almost like you've become second nature. Now, we're not here to put Curryhead over, but we appreciate you calling in, and we appreciate you, putting the pimp game down on all of us. We don't want to be anybody's bottom bitches, that's for sure. So, Curryhead, what do you got tonight?
Well, I like to say I got to give this show a pass because at least this whole show was, hold on. Well, I got to give this whole, damn, she's short. Never mind. I got to give this show this was a pass for this thing. All the meticulous little things towards the main event, towards this show, was on. And another thing, I wasn't feeling that the championship and it started out great with the champion coming in against, you can say, right now is the number one heel right now, Bobby Roode. I was saying that Bubba Ray was the number one heel till he got on that match with Sting, but Bobby Roode is the number one heel, and they had a good stiff match. I thought that was a positive. I like how they doing the little angle with AJ and Angle having a little rift between that, so I kind of figured like they're going to win the tag team titles. And I like how every match was mentioned and everything was taken care of for a big time show. Because look at this show, you have at least one other question like what was it going to do with the X Division title? They answered that. At least with a match that I'm kind of interested in and seeing how RVD is going to do against a match in the X Division match, which a lot of people say he is. The forerunner of the X Division. You agree with me with that, do you, fellas?
Right. Absolutely. I think RVD, this is the kind of match, if you're going to put RVD into something, and his job is to put over Zema Ion. Let's just put it right out there. He's not to put over RVD. He's to put over Zema Ion.
That is true, but also I just want to say this. Every match on here, this pay-per-view they sold the pay-per-view. They did not sell one particular match. They sold the pay-per-view. They want you to buy this pay-per-view. That's what I want, and that's the kind of thing I like TNA doing right now. They're going to sell their main pay-per-view. They're selling their pay-per-view. Every match on there is important, and one match is not important for the other. It kind of sucks that the championship match they at least selling the championship match towards the end. At least got the Austin Aries figure out that was he going to be a heel? Was he going to be a straight-on babyface versus babyface? Now
right.
You got a pissed off babyface that's becoming a little bit more heelish, that he wants to respect and honor. And I know y'all didn't listen to the whole thing. I like how the banter between both guys towards the end of the match, how Hardy was talking about how he was in pain. He didn't want to hear Austin Aries talk. I'm trying to not cause BS, or you want to hear Austin Aries is jealous with the little banter. What he was jealous of, he was important jabs at Jeff Hardy with his history of, drug. He mentioned his drug abuse and all those situations and how he's in pain and all that much. I like this. This is actually a pay-per-view. This actually go-home show is how you do a go-home show to a quality pay-per-view. They're not insulting our intelligence. They are in making sure that everything is put in place, and they're making sure that not just making sure everything's put in place, but making sure that the pay-per-view fans understand what's going on. And that's the reason why I like how they started out hot with a good match, and they ended with a good match, and they at least have some in between. Every match was mentioned, and every reason why these matches going on was mentioned. That's what I'm looking for in a company, and when it comes to a pay-per-view go-home show. The little things, which means that if you explain it to us, not holding our hand, but at least explain to us what's going on, and if you do a little swirl, I don't mind that.
Yep.
But I gotta go,
All right.
guys. I gotta make my money.
Perfect.
You take care.
Curryhead, thank you for calling in. Matthew, Curryhead's kind of, and this is meant in the most positive way possible. Curryhead is the TNA of our callers. He actually, even though he's got the gimmick, he's he does what he does on the side and a ham sandwich and the bro ham and whatnot, but he really comes with the wrestling talk. I mean, he actually laid it out for us to play it out.
He does. Very, very well put there.
That was more pimp talk, if you didn't catch that.
Yeah. kind of like the bottom bitches reference, right?
Oh, you like that one, huh? Folks, TNA's Bound for Glory is this Sunday, okay? We're going to do our final thoughts right now, and we want to talk about what's going to happen at Bound for Glory this Sunday. Matthew, it's the be-all, end-all. It is the show to end all shows. I count at least 8 matches, 8 solidly built storylines going into each match, and at the very least 4 possible pay-per-view headlining matches that could happen at any pay-per-view. Let's start from the bottom. And this is not a slight on any of them, but let's start with the one just announced tonight, RVD and Zema Ion for the X Division Championship.
I got to think that it's going to be a good match, and you got to feel that Zema Ion is going to find some type of way to retain and what might very well be his biggest win on his biggest stage yet.
We've also got Joey Ryan and Al Snow. Now, a match that has been built up with the TNA Gut Check and the TNA, Open Fight Nights. Joey Ryan came in, lost Gut Check, and has been going at it ever since with Al Snow. And finally, Al has given him a one-day contract to wrestle at Bound for Glory. Al Snow getting back on major TV. We see Al Snow here in the GLCW area, but Al Snow on major TV on a major pay-per-view against Joey Ryan.
I think this one is pretty easy to forecast. I think Joey Ryan goes over. I really don't see it making any sense any other way.
Right, exactly. Let's talk TNA knockouts for the championship. The champion, Miss Tessmacher, is going to go one-on-one with her former teacher, Tara, who has flipped the script and actually become a heel in the last 3 to 4 weeks with her Hollywood boyfriend, who we think may be Eric Young.
When this match was first made, it seemed like Tessmacher was the easy pick, put her over on a big stage, Bound for Glory. You've entered in with the whole Tara mystery Hollywood boyfriend angle. I still think you're going to have Tessmacher go over. I think the Tara boyfriend reveal will probably lead to some type of scuffle between Tara and ODB, which will lead to Miss Tessmacher picking up the victory.
Yep. Samoa Joe, Magnus, now they've actually followed through on something. The TV championship wasn't being defended. Devon, with contractual issues, had to cough up the title. So Samoa Joe, your new TV championship, and he has a reason to wrestle Magnus.
Yeah, and I see him retaining. I feel like he's built up a decent bit of momentum over the last few weeks, and I don't see taking the belt off of him just a few weeks into his title run.
A street fight, Bobby Roode versus James Storm with the special enforcer of King Mo. This is an angle that has taken a year to build.
Yeah, and I think that you do get the conclusion here. It's been a year in the making. I think you have Storm go over to finally put a cap on this feud.
The World Tag Team titles are on the line. The champions, the World Tag Team champions of the world, that is, Kazarian and Christopher Daniels going up against the challengers, the teams of Styles and Angle, and Guerrero and Hernandez.
Kaz and Daniels just seem to have too much chemistry and to be too good together right now to take the belts off of them. I see Kaz and Daniels retaining in the tag team title match.
Yep, and if not for the Claire Lynch thing, this would actually be the conclusion of the Claire Lynch saga as well, but they kind of washed that out. A double main event, let's just call it as it is. First off, Aces and Eights will put two men on the line against Sting and Bully Ray, and if Aces and Eights win, they have free reign. If not, they're going to be locked out of the building. I think we get a reveal here.
I think we get the reveal. I think we get Aces and Eights going over to continue that storyline by allowing them into the Impact Zone. And regardless of what happens, I think you walk away from this match with Bully Ray as the main guy in that company leading Bound for Glory.
And then finally wrapping it up, Jeff Hardy, Austin Aries. That was your final thoughts. We'll talk a little bit more right on Sudden Impact every Thursday night, right after Impact goes off the air. Matthew, let's talk about it. It's the main event of the pay-per-view. It's going to be Jeff Hardy, and it's Austin Aries. The Bound for Glory series, its second year. How did you feel that the pay-per-view, the Bound for Glory series built towards Bound for Glory? I thought they did an incredible job this year with Bound for Glory, and they really got something. It was, its first year last year. It was kind of hackney, but I really thought they hit a groove with the Bound for Glory series.
Yeah, what they did better than anything, I think, was they made it tough to predict this year. I assumed immediately that it was basically a 3-month deal to get us to Roode Storm for the title. And that is entirely not what happened. So coming out of this year, it is actually setting the stage, if they follow through with it and do it again next year, for me to have more interest in the tournament next year, because this year just showed that basically they can go any way with it, and it's not always what you think. It's not always what's right there in front of you.
Yeah, we all thought it was leading towards Roode and Storm. We still got the match, but it wasn't for the title. We thought that we were building towards the end of the year to get that match for the belt. That was going to be the big culmination. But we're still getting a match, and we're getting a title match, and we're getting the Aces and Eights versus Sting and Bully Ray. Again, amazing build. This has been 3-4 months in the works now. Would you have ever thought we would be talking about TNA like this, where they've actually got a plan? They've worked towards a plan. They wrote it out, and we're getting the culmination this Sunday.
Yeah, and what I like so much is you've got the match that's going to be a good, solid wrestling match between Aries and Hardy, and you've also got this Aces and Eights storyline where you're intrigued to see what that reveal is. It's that air of mystery to it that you're intrigued to see what happens. It reminds me a little bit of a couple of years ago with the whole 10-10-10 thing, where that was one Bound for Glory that I had a lot of interest going into, just because you didn't know what that reveal was going to be. And storylines like this are not that you're going to see the best classic wrestling tag team match in the world with Bully Ray and Sting versus two masked men from Aces and Eights, but you have got that intrigue, you've got that interest as to who these guys are, and you want to walk away from that. I want to walk away from this pay-per-view being surprised. I don't necessarily at this point care who it is. I just want to walk away with, that surprise value there, leaving Bound for Glory.
Okay, so let's call it right here, and we'll start off with the main event. I want a prediction. Is Jeff Hardy walking away with the belt, or is it Austin Aries?
It's not Hardy's night. I see Austin Aries retaining. I feel like this is his spot. This is his moment to retain over Jeff Hardy and to just kind of bask in that Bound for Glory spotlight.
Do you think that changed after Austin Aries' promo tonight, or were you already there before that promo?
I was already there before that promo, and I thought that actually that heel turn was going to happen at the pay-per-view, because prior to that promo, I was little bit disgusted with the lack of build-up that we had to that match, because you would see just a couple of backstage interactions between the two, but you hadn't had that in-ring mic-to-mic interaction yet. They really were kind of trying to keep it low-key, it seemed like, and so I finally put the pieces together tonight and said, okay, what they're going to do is they're going to turn Aries at the pay-per-view, and then that's going to lead into a couple of more matches with the full-fledged heel Aries versus Hardy. So I was that way prior to the promo, but either way, I think that this heel Austin Aries he's going to retain and have his Bound for Glory moment.
I think so too, and I guess we can never get, we're never satisfied, because we've always said that we want the competitors for the main event of the main pay-per-view to stay away from each other, don't touch, and we got that this time, and it didn't feel right to us because we had been so preconditioned that they're going to interact with each other, even sometimes become tag team champions together. But we got what we asked for this time, and they kept them apart.
Yeah, they kept them apart, but in the interim, it didn't seem up until tonight like they did a lot to really develop why they were fighting, other than Jeff Hardy winning the Bound for Glory tournament, which was technically the reason. But you want, at least I want, something a little more than that.
Yeah, more issues. So you say Hardy, you say Aries. I say Aries as well. There's no reason for Jeff Hardy to win the belt, but every reason in the world to build Austin Aries even more into the star that he can become. Aces and eights, Sting, Bully Ray. We're going to get some sort of reveal. We have to. Otherwise, this match is just a huge disappointment. So we're going to get a reveal, but who's going to win the match? Do you see Aces and eights getting the victory and having free reign at the building, or is it a victory for Sting and Bully Ray?
I think you got to go Aces and eights, because I think that opens up so many more potential storylines with Impact in the weeks to come. I really don't see another way, to be honest with you.
I'm going to go the opposite, and I do see a way. It's not logical, but I see it, and I see it's being wrestling because it's a swerve on the swerve. I see the Sting and Bully Ray getting the victory, but I see there still being a reveal. And I see them still getting into the building on Thursday, and there being another stipulation for the next pay-per-view. WWE style. And again, not to keep talking about the other company, but you know how they treat Backlash now to resolve issues that happen at WrestleMania?
Sure.
It's going to happen that way. World Tag Team titles, Styles and Angle, Guerrero and Hernandez. Your champions, Daniels and Kazarian. Who you got in that one?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going Kaz and Daniels there. They're too good together. They've got too much chemistry, and I can actually see this match, the other two teams, both of them having a little bit of a riff, and maybe breaking off into separate programs with Angle and Styles, and with Hernandez and Chavo. They've kind of teased that a little bit, and I think you could have a couple of different storylines coming out of that. And like I said, Kaz and Daniels, they seem to have that chemistry. They seem to be outright funny together, and I have enjoyed them over the last few months. And you can't have the tag team.
Once the Claire Lynch stuff was removed, once the Claire Lynch stuff was removed, I've actually enjoyed them.
Even during that, their interactions together, I enjoyed. The whole Claire Lynch thing was a different story altogether. But just the chemistry between these guys, I want to see.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that if we think back a year's time, all the different angles that have gone off, we've had no issues with any of them, but like the Claire Lynch one. Yep. Out of the 20, 30 angles that may have happened, we've got one to pick on. That's it.
That's a pretty good track record right there.
Amazing stuff. I see it going differently, though. I actually see Guerrero and Hernandez getting the tag team belts and pushing the Latino tag team for a while. They got to put Guerrero out there and make some money on Guerrero's back on this one. The street fight, Bobby Roode, James Storm, the special enforcer, King Mo. You touched on it a little bit. You see James Storm finally getting the payoff for the year-long battle. It would be very anticlimactic if it was anything but that. Probably Bobby Roode and King Mo have interaction, and Storm comes out on top. You and I both agree on this one, 100%. Let's talk a little bit more about the television championship match. Again, they finally put, and again, this is me poking holes. It's what I'm here to do, broadcast journalist. You notice the belt that Joe won the night that he won the TV championship? It looks nothing like the one he's got now. Apparently, Devon either heard us on the radio or the lawyers got a hold of him, because Joe is now carrying around the TNA television championship, the real one.
That FedEx shipment finally made it there. That's what it was.
Well, it's because they sent it ground. Of course it was going to take time, and nobody was there to sign for it, so they had to go and wait the 3 days, and all of a sudden it was sitting at the place, so you had to go pick it up and show ID, and it took forever for the belt to get there. And then Joe was out of town, because they only fly in for the shows. I would like actually to see Magnus win the belt. Put a program, let him play hot potato with the belt for a little bit. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it in the least. I really enjoy Magnus. I just feel like with Joe just getting the title and finally having some momentum, I feel like it's going to be a little quick to take it off of him, but we will see come Sunday.
Okay. Want to read a couple tweets here before we get off the air. Oh, excuse my hiccups. I've been drinking. I'm just kidding. Want to read a couple tweets here before we get off the air. Sal Perez, co-fan of the year, says Austin Aries dropping a pipe bomb on the Jeff Hardy brand. I think it's a shoot. Well, Austin Aries made it seem like a shoot. He actually, his delivery was fine. Jesse Hyde, now the real Hyde 316, did say that it was nothing but a worked shoot plot before a pay-per-view. It's quite possible. Balls Deeper 1986. I'm only calling him out because I like the name. Said that Aries Hardy promo was awesome. That made me press the buy button. Good job, Impact Wrestling. And Shirley, the other co-fan of the year, said she's listening to Sudden Impact with WCW Meathead. Don't forget Matthew Thomas, of course, while watching a dude get tased on Pops TV. So what better way to do it? Hey, I do want to mention, too, by the way, that if you're unable to order TNA Bound for Glory on pay-per-view, make sure you go into the website, impactwrestling.com. Look and see if it's being shown in your area. They are showing the pay-per-view at theaters. Again, I love the thought of this. We don't have one here in the Milwaukee area, but I love the thought of it. I love going. I know, Matthew, you said you did it last year?
Yeah, I did it last year, going again on Sunday to see it in the theater, and it is the experience. It is an experience. If you have the opportunity, I would highly, highly recommend it. Last year was the first time I had ever seen a pay-per-view in a theater, and it does indeed add another dimension to it.
For Matthew Thomas, I'm the man they call Meathead. Make sure you join us this Sunday right after Bound for Glory for the live TNA post show from the Pro Wrestling Report, Damian Wilson and David Hero. Thank you for listening tonight to Sudden Impact Radio. We'll see you next week right after Impact Wrestling. Good night.